Hey, Geekscapists! We are here on the Geekscape TV channel, and I am sitting with a longtime friend, Tommy Avallone, to talk about his newest film, The House From. Uh, Tommy, I am trying to remember all of the dates. This is going to come out on Friday. Smodcastle hasn't happened yet, correct?
Yeah. So we're premiering at Kevin Smith's Smod Castle in Atlantic Highlands at 8:30, and then this Sunday, October 27th, will be on the Maximum Effort channel, Ryan Reynolds' Maximum Effort channel, and then October 28th, Monday, will be on iTunes, Amazon, Google, like wherever you get your digital downloads for the great price of $9.99.
I'm really excited to talk about this because you have I was thinking about our the 20 almost 20-year friendship that we've had, and like the origins start psychotically, right? Like it was it was you were just like a person on a radio show I like to listen to, but they would
Sure.
play your old band. You had a rap group at the time, and I would start booking your rap group. And
Yeah.
then you and I start to get along about like mutual appreciation of film and 80s and 90s pop culture. And basically ever since, pretty much anytime you've had a project, I've tried to do something to support it, whether it's like do a post about it on the Geekscape page or have you on whatever podcast we were doing at that time. So I've gotten to see you evolve as a filmmaker. And this is like this has to feel like one of the biggest projects you've worked on to date, right? Like you've got Ryan Reynolds and Jason Lee and all these like big names kind of associated with it.
Like on paper, yes, right? But no. I mean, like Barney, I Love You, You Hate Me for sure was the biggest project I ever did because I was working inside the system. The budget was way more money and there was way more people working on it. Whereas this was like a 5-year long project where it's like me and like a couple other people, like Charlie and Derek shot it. This guy, Chris Murray, shot it. And Raymond Esposito is our executive producer. We have producers like Lee and Leshin, like all there's like small crew. But being able to attach and work with amazing people like Jason Lee, Ethan Umbre, Ryan Reynolds, and all that sort of stuff. So they're on paper, yes, very, very big. But in reality, it's a small project.
Well, it might be small in budget, but it's a pretty expansive
Oh
collection.
yeah,
And
we were everywhere, man. We were like in Tulsa, we were in Chicago, we're in Los Angeles, we're in Oregon, Cleveland. We're in we were in Nevada. So many things, so many Fuddruckers eaten, so many deep dish pizza eaten, so much, so much.
and you've barely, I mean, there's a lot in this movie, but like as you and I have talked about on a couple of my podcasts while promoting this, like the idea of this is like a TV series, like you would never run out of houses to visit. Like there's just
No,
so much to do. But I think you've really did a good job of I think you described it as like a mixtape almost of your favorite movies and the
yeah,
movies that people would care about, right? Like you got both of them in a big, big way.
yeah. I mean, like I just came off of like the Barney docuseries, "I Love You, You Hate Me," whereas like there was so many cooks in the kitchen, there was so many people telling like some ways telling me I didn't know what I was doing, but also like just so to go into this, I'm like I'm gonna do just exactly what I want.
Yeah.
It's like, is there an audience for taking Ethan Umbre to the Can't Hardly Wait house? Not sure, but I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
Like going to go to the Friday, Pee Wee Herman, all these things that like. I mean, look, I love Short Circuit. Is anyone dying to see the Short Circuit house? I'm sure there is some. But if I were to pitch that to a network, they'd be like, "What movie?"
Yeah.
I've actually talked to people who have never even heard of Short Circuit, and that kills me. But just to back up, yeah, The House from a documentary about what it's like to live in famous houses from like movies and TV shows. Something we started 5 years ago in 2019.
What's the and it could be this one. What's the longest timeline that you've worked on a
This.
documentary? This was definitely the longest one.
Yeah, because like Santa Claus was about 3 years, and I actually like worked in radio still at that time, so it was like a year of filming and just like a little bit before, and like another year of sort of editing. So Santa was 3 years. Ghost Heads was super quick. Bill Murray was kind of like this in that we started Bill Murray stories, made ghost heads, and then finished Bill Murray. Whereas this, we started this, made Barney, and then went back to finishing this.
Okay, that makes sense. With I want to ask about the Barney one because I actually never really got to talk to you too much about that Barney one. Was that a project that you yourself were like pitching to do, or was that
Yes.
one that you actually like had gotten selected to make?
No, it was totally like I watched this video on Instagram where it was a college, God, Nebraska, that was doing a Barney bashing event in 1993, and all these college students are just like ripping apart this purple doll, you know?
Yeah,
And at the end, the newscaster goes, "Well, that's the future of this country right here." And I was like, "Oh my God, we're living in that future right now."
yeah,
So it's like, what if we told a story about where does hate come from, but told it through Barney the dinosaur? Like Barney the dinosaur is John Cena. You know, the kids love him, the adults hated him, you know? So it was just a fun sort of low stakes way of exploring where does hate come from and where do we connect over hate in some ways. So it was that was totally my idea. All ideas. Well, Waldo on Weed wasn't my idea. I went to the father asking to do a documentary about pizza, and he was like, "Well, I'm actually doing this thing with my son," and that's how it turned into that.
what was the documentary about pizza gonna be?
Well, so Brian Dwyer, the father in Waldo on Weed, owned at the time Pizza Brain. It's this place in Fishtown in Pennsylvania. And it was the largest gathering of pizza memorabilia, you know. And there was like he would do these fun events where he had like the Turtles van. He would just do a lot. He was a fun character. And so I reached out to him. I was like, "Is there something we could do about pizza? Like, is there a show we could do? Like, is there something that we could explore pizza and the way you collect and look at pizza and all that sort of stuff?" And he's like, "No."
Yeah, there
Yeah,
you
and
go.
then but Waldo and Weed is definitely a different movie than that, but like it turned out really good. And I was really proud of that one.
I mean, I've told you before, I think Waldo on Weed, it might not be the one I watch the most, but it's definitely what I think is the best thing you've
Oh
created.
yeah.
It's
Yeah,
so
because like
emotional and just heartbreak, but it's a tough watch. Like, and I feel like now that I live with my girlfriend and her 3 kids and I have even like more of an attachment to the
sure.
struggles of a child, I don't know if I could get through it. I think at this point, it's a heavy tale. So
Sure,
there's
but
a
it's
good
not
chance.
Dear Zachary, you know?
No, I mean, it's not Dear Zachary. The kid, spoiler alert, the kid lives in this one, but
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
but
yeah.
tell people a little bit about because I do think that that's probably, since it's not pop culture based, it's the doc of yours that gets the least amount of attention a lot of
Oh my
time.
god, yeah. Yeah,
Like,
and like
what is it about?
Whoopi Goldberg's our executive producer, you know?
Yeah.
It's like you would think that, but it's so funny whenever like people are like, "Oh, it made Santa, Bill Murray," you know, like it's like never Waldo, and that's
Yeah.
one of my favorite one. But yeah, I mean, it's to me, it's a story about what a father would do to save his son. You know, Brian's son Waldo had eye cancer at 6 months old, and this is happening in 2014. And he went to California to illegally smuggle cannabis oil to help with his son's chemotherapy, and it worked. You know, and like we got to talk to like doctors from Harvard and all that sort of stuff. And I'm not a cannabis smoker. So it was not to me like a pro agenda sort of cannabis thing. It was like, I have kids. What would you do to save your kid if something was wrong? You know, you see that everything isn't helping or working in the way you want it to help, and cannabis was there in their story to really counteract the results of the chemotherapy in a way that Waldo, the son, remained healthy and had an appetite and still didn't lose himself throughout this like awful thing that was happening.
Yeah, it's a definite recommend across the board. Uh it's funny to me you were talking about how Barney came from you watching a YouTube video and probably
Instagram.
Instagram video. The closest that I've ever come to wanting to like sit down and do a documentary was over the pandemic seeing a video on YouTube. Do you remember the band Bad Luck 13?
Yeah, yeah.
I I somehow stumbled into a video of like one of their shows in like the late 90s, early 2000s, and it looked like a war zone with children. Like it was just like things flipped over, weapons being thrown out into the crowd. And I was like, I wonder what these guys are up to. But then the more I thought about it, I'm like, I don't know if I really want to hang out with these guys that much to find out what these guys are up to.
Yeah, my friend Jordan got I think we must have been like 18, 19 years old, and he was getting a tattoo on his arm, and we were like this place called I think it was like Sick Creations was, and we saw on as the tattoo artist was doing his work, we saw like a Bad Luck 13 thing on the wall. We're like, oh, Bad Luck 13, huh? He's like, I'm in the band, and we just like instantly got terrified.
Yeah,
You
like the
know, you
scariest
know,
band that's ever existed.
like if anyone who doesn't know who Bad Luck 13 is, it's like a band that was like just loved professional wrestling, and they was just like sometimes like lock the doors and just like flip tables, set things on fire. Like they just went
the
crazy.
the
There probably
video
was
that
blood.
the video that I remember watching, and if I can find it, I'll insert it into this conversation. But the video I remember watching was like they were pulling barbed wire bats and fluorescent light bulbs out of a trash can and handing it to the crowd in the mosh pit to just like beat the shit out of each other with. And I was just like, this is too uncomfortable for me.
Oh man, the '90s and early 2000s. What a
what a
great time.
what a
You
fucking
know,
time to be alive.
I thought about like what would a music documentary look like for me? I looked into the Frogs and I looked into Tiny Tim. Those were like artists that I was like gonna try to check out, but they're Tiny Tim's documentary is actually out now, and I think the Frogs one is still being worked on or it got done. I'm not sure,
I mean, you did
but
Guar. I mean,
well,
that's a
right,
pretty
that
good
and that was
one.
kind of my thing. I produced that one though, but like that was definitely. But like I was like, what can I direct that's like a music one?
The one that I've always secretly wanted to do, but I don't know what audience gives a shit, was the late '90s, early 2000s Christian punk scene. Just like
Oh
a
yeah,
documentary about like that whole weird subculture because I was a part of that subculture. So like
yeah.
kind of like analyzing that. Where is
I
that?
actually you'd probably make a lot of money on that. Like there's like such a I mean, like that's the straight to DVD home video market. It's horror
Yeah.
movies and Christian movies, you know? Corbin Bernsen once told us, it's like all you need is your like third act to drop to your knees and ask God for forgiveness and you got a sale in the Christian market, you know?
That's some good advice. I'll keep that in mind. Uh, I mean, as we're sitting here spitballing, though, is that normally how most of your documentaries come to be? Is you're just like, hey, I wonder what it's like with that guy. Like, you know what I mean? Like you've said,
Yeah.
like Santa was like, what's it feel like to look like Santa Claus all year round?
Yeah, it's always a case of wonder, you
Yeah.
know? Like or and like why is the best question in the world, you know? And it's looking at Bill Murray and like doing like the dishes at a party and like, in Europe, like why is he doing that?
Yeah.
And then just trying to figure out those things. It's always fun to like take a look at something and like the flip side of it. Like with Santa Claus, it's like, yeah, here's these people who look like Santa Claus all year round. What family does he go home to on Christmas? Even Waldo, it's like, so many people are easily to write off. Like if they read an article about like a father who like gave cannabis oil to his kid, they'd be like, what a monster,
Yeah.
But like you watch the story and you're like, oh no, I get it.
Yeah.
Like
100%.
so yeah, I mean like Barney and like House is the same thing. It's like, yeah, dude, like I live 15 minutes from the Rocky Steps. I could drive an hour and a half and go to the Quick Stop and RST Video. Like as a kid, you just like, oh, well, this stuff is amazing. I love going to famous houses, and then I lived in Los Angeles for a bit. And it's like, oh, the Wonder Years house, like Pee Wee's house. I mean, South Pasadena, like everything's there. But like seeing these things in real life, you're like, this is amazing.
Yeah. And you bring up the quick stop. I obviously have been to the quick stop now
Yeah.
officially. I went there a couple months ago actually for the
Oh,
first time.
nice.
Um and when we first became friends, you were very focused on narrative storytelling, and so
Yeah.
was I at the time. And I
Sure.
think that we both kind of saw in each other that we both really wanted to be Kevin Smith.
Yeah.
If you read anything that I had written and watched anything that you had made at that time, you'd be like, oh man, these guys definitely like Kevin Smith.
For
And
sure.
then I kind of went out into the podcasting world, and you really found your footing in the documentary world. Is there a part of you that wants to get back into doing the
Yeah.
narrative
Absolutely.
features, or do you
Yeah.
love the docs? Like,
No, yeah, I definitely like, I've been doing docs for almost 10 years now. I think next year, well, Santa Claus, the our 10th anniversary Blu-ray of I Am Santa Claus comes out in like a month. So at least finished work. I've been doing it for at least 10 years, but 2 years prior. So yeah, I've been doing this for quite some time in documentaries. And there are a couple projects hopefully on the horizon where I can get into like writing and directing something that's a little bit more than just a documentary.
Yeah.
We had a couple scripted elements in the Bill Murray
I was
stories and
gonna
stuff like
say Bill
that.
Murray stories had a little bit more of it. At least you got to do reenactments of segments and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, we had like a 3 minutes of like written dialogue, and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, for sure, there's definitely things that I would love to get into as far as scripted stuff. Yeah.
Have you I know that a huge chunk of the Bill Murray stories was like you cold calling that Bill Murray hotline just trying to get.
Mhm.
Have you ever heard anything back from him or his representatives at all after the documentary came out, or
Well, he doesn't have representatives.
well, yeah, he has a phone
But
number,
yeah,
but yeah.
I mean, like oddly enough, Mick Foley has run into Bill Murray twice. Uh, Mick Foley is like the Santa Claus to Nora Jones, which
Yeah.
is, and Nora will have these like almost Christmas shows in Brooklyn. And last two times they happened, Bill Murray was there. And the last time, Mick Foley's dressed as Santa Claus, and Bill Murray's who Bill Murray is. And Mick is like, I'm sorry, Bill, I'm not trying to bother you, but have you seen the Bill Murray stories? Because like Mick loved it.
Yeah.
We did I Am Santa Claus with Mick Foley, and he's our child Santa Claus, so we're like very good friends. And Bill's like, I've heard of it, but I've never seen it. This is 2019, and and then Mick goes, I know you probably feel a particular way, but you really should check it out. They really did a good job with you. He's like, maybe one day I'll watch it when I have the flu. And I always thought that was funny because right after that COVID happened. But who
Bill Murray
knows?
caused it. That's what we're saying.
No, but I spoke to Joel Murray, his brother, and Joel loved it. He loved the movie. It's like it's like one of those things where you really get to appreciate your brother in a way that only funerals would be. But he's still alive. So Joel loved it. And will Bill watch it? Probably not, but that's who Bill is, and that's why
Yeah.
we love Bill.
So you let me see how I want to word this. Like you were saying, so there, but to go back to what I was originally saying, yes, there is a desire you're saying to like get into some scripted narrative
Yeah.
stuff once again. Because I remember when the I Am Santa Claus thing happened, like you were coming on like an old podcast of mine to promote a feature film that you had just completed, and there was like a bunch of these like feature films that you were producing, and I Am Santa Claus was just kind of like this. Yeah, and I got this other idea that I might like. Like it was kind of like this in the back of your mind, like a thing you might do. And
Yeah.
then I remember going to the premiere of I Am Santa Claus and like walking out of it and being like, that was unfreaking believable.
Oh,
And ever since I mean, I was always a fan. I loved the Wasted Apples trilogy. I loved Community College. I loved those projects, but this was like really where you you allowed a lot of the kindness that's in you to show in your documentaries in a way that your feature films at the time weren't. Like your feature films were
sure.
very snotty teenager early 20s,
Yeah.
and like this was like no, there's like a warmth in Tommy that he doesn't show when he's in character, but in real life he's and it was
Yeah,
no, but
yeah, in
it was
character for sure. No, I mean, look, dude, like it's like I created like when I was in right out of high school, I made these like 3 movies, all about me and my friends growing up and stuff like that, and we would play them at the local theater, and it was fun. We did all that sort of stuff, and then we grew, and then like we made this movie called Community College, which isn't really watchable in today's world, unfortunately. And it was a lot of fun, and I felt like I started to find myself having a voice there. But like it was really hard for me to direct. I didn't feel like I was good at it, and like later in life I was like, oh, was it me, or was like the people I was working with not real actors? Like I think there was somewhere in the middle. Like I do have a hard time telling someone how to do something that's in my head. That's why with documentaries I could ask questions and I could just make it later.
yeah,
I could follow someone with a camera and make it later. Like I love being able to make something in the edit. Like that's where a movie comes together. It's like I have these ideas. I'm going to film a couple Bill Murray stories here, or I'm going to film a little bit of Barney people here. Let's wrap it up, and I know how to do that in the edit room. Like in an honest way, and not like like bad journalism. But like so there was this well, I'm like, well, maybe I'm not the best director, but I do know how to put something together. So I started producing these movies. But when I produced this movie, Miss December, that had Corbin Burnson, Gilbert Godfrey, and Brian O'Halloran in it, it played a couple festivals, and Morgan Spurlock was at that festival, and he had just did the greatest movie ever sold.
Yep.
And we had a mutual friend, this guy Toothpick, who does like music for all my movies, Doug Ray, and he did the Super Size Me song. I was like, oh, Morgan. I was like, my friend Doug. He's like, oh, how is he? How is he? And I was like, hey, look, I got this idea for a documentary. And I was like, what it's like to be Santa for the rest of the year. He's like, that's amazing. You should do it. And that was
Yeah.
like everything. If he didn't say that, like I probably wouldn't have changed the game in my world,
You would just still be producing films. And
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we're trying to figure that out. I was still working at a radio station, So after Santa, it's 2014. I'm still working at a radio station, trying to figure out how to make Bill Murray stories. And I got laid off from my job, and it was one of those like free fall moments where like I always mess the quote up, but it's like in was it Dark Knight Rises, where Batman gets out of that cave, like he broke his back, and he's like the only way to do it was without a net,
yeah,
and that was how I did it. It was like I had no safety net. I had to start making money making movies. So we made Ghost Heads, we made Bill Murray stories, we made Waldo, then Barney, and like every 2 years there's been something coming out, and it's because it's like, oh, because you have no net. There's
yeah.
no like, oh well, I can make money doing this, I can make money doing that. It's like, nope. If I don't do something,
I
we'll all starve.
It's you know what? And I'm even experiencing that a little bit. Like sometimes starvation is the greatest motivator
Yeah,
for
yeah. I mean,
for
well, yeah,
anything. Like there was stuff happened where I just realized like, oh, there was $1,000 that I was expecting to have each month. That's not going to be the case anymore. And it really turned into like, all right, who can I start? Let's start figuring out how to do merch. Let's figure out how to start do like you just have to you either survive or the idea, even when that was happening, the idea of like I should quit what I'm doing and just get a desk job, like never once passed my mind.
yeah,
Like, like it's like no, because I did that and that sucks. And like
yeah.
this is fulfilling, and I just need to figure out what to do and what pieces need to be moved to make this fulfilling and somewhat survivable. And that's, I mean, that with documentaries, I mean, anybody will tell you like it's not really a guaranteed moneymaker in the
Oh
grand
no,
scheme of things. It's
no.
real rough. Like
Yeah, I mean, like Bill Murray stories came out at an interesting time too, because like that came out South by 2018, right? So every like the year prior, like movies were selling for like $500,000 easy, to all the streamers and stuff like that. But it was that Sundance, like 2 months prior, like Netflix and Hulu were like, "Hey, guess what, guys? We're not acquiring movies like we used to anymore. We're actually going to start making them ourselves." Which completely changed the game. And yes, Bill Murray stories got on Netflix for 2 years after that. But still, it's like it went through like, Gravitas, which is like a smaller distribution arm. The money wasn't there, and it's been drastically changing since.
yeah, and it feels like a lot of these projects, someone who helped with The House from Taylor Morden, a good friend of both of
Oh
ours,
yeah,
like his projects, they get the press. He knows what to do with Last Blockbuster, with his ska documentary, now with Getting Lost. But there is that element of like once this is over, it's basically you're just back to the drawing board. It's not like like Getting Lost is going to provide these syndication residuals into Taylor's bank account for eternity like the people who are appearing in the documentary that were on Lost. Like you don't have that return revenue with the documentary the way that you would with so many other things.
yeah. I mean, we'll still get ghost head checks from time to time, but like, yeah. I mean, you're right. It's like, but like more Taylor, man, he's just like the one man crew. Like he just, you know, it's, outside looking in, right? But, like, I look at his stuff, and I've talked to him about this before, but it's like, I just love how, like, he's such a beast in, like, his Kickstarter stuff, where he just makes so much money where, like, he and, like, I'm assuming a couple other people, but mostly just him, just knock it out of the park,
Yeah.
and he makes movies that are for that audience and the merchandise. It's something I'd actually need to get into is, like, because I'm growing up Kevin Smith, it's all about the merchandise. I'm trying I'm trying to, like, get into that because it's like, oh, yeah, like, maybe, maybe people would be like I mean, Kevin Smith is an amazing artist, but what made him the most successful is he knew how to merchandise and he knew how to talk to an audience there that would be willing to buy his stuff, and
Yeah,
God, I mean, I have Clerks VHS, DVD, 10th anniversary DVD, and Blu-ray, Mallrats VHS, DVD, 10th anniversary DVD, and Blu-ray, like, it works.
yeah. It does. No, I that's been like the conversation I've been having with a lot of the people from different podcasts that I'm a part of is like we need to up our game on shirts. We need to up our
Yeah.
game on merchandise. We need to figure out like one of the shows that I'm working on that I'm a part of. We're working on like launching a trivia game. You know what I mean? Like
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
taking whatever it is that you're doing and figuring out how to make it more than what it already is. And that is like that's what I think you're good at that too though, Tommy. Like
What, merchandise?
well, I think you're good at getting your stuff out there in a way
Sure.
that people care, and that's a skill set you've had way before the documentaries. We won't get into the deep dive of it, but, like, you talked your way onto so many, like, television broadcasts and just,
Oh,
like,
you're talking about
always
Dr. Phil.
well, not just that, like, you've there's literally a reel that you cut together set to "Tommy, Can You Hear Me?" That's all the
Yeah,
times that you showed up on television somehow. Like,
yeah.
you just knew how to talk yourself into a room.
Well, I'm a big fan of Andy Kaufman,
Yeah.
and, like, I just I have him tattooed on my arm, we're producing the Andy Kaufman documentary, but, like, it's just, he was so good at, like, just, like, going on, like, the dating game as a character, I love those bits,
It's that
but yeah.
wrestling in you too.
Oh,
It's
that's
yeah.
true, that's very true, I know how to I've cut many promos in the shower, so I guess I know how to
Yeah, I could never see you actually wrestling, but I could see
Oh god,
you
no.
managing a heel
Yes.
without, like, no prep at all. Just, like, them telling you
Yeah.
the name and sending you out there with a microphone and you could do it. Like
Well, you mentioned the rap group, like, I was in a comedy rap group, many, many years ago, and we just love being bad guy wrestlers, like, we played this show in Texas somewhere, and we just didn't like the audience, and we just, like, were just making fun of them the whole time. We played a show in Atlantic City, and this guy we had this one song called Pans, and it's like a 2.5-minute song, and the guy was screaming at us, "This song sucks."
Yeah.
So we played it 5 times in a row. And it was seriously the funnest experience I've ever had because, like, the guy was so angry, and I was loving it so much.
But that to me, like, you've always had, like, a punk rock ethos to your
Yes.
life, and,
Yeah.
like, one of my favorite stories is, like, the band Devo, right? When you think of the band Devo, people think of Whip It, and they don't think of, like, a punk band.
Sure.
But they, like, infamously would play shows where if the crowd wasn't into it, they would play their one song for 45 straight minutes.
Yeah.
Like the song "Are We Not Men, We Are Devo," and they would just chant that for 45 straight minutes, and I think the way it was described one time was, "Until the crowd was physically unplugging our instruments to get us to stop, we would not stop playing the song to piss them off." And that is,
Yeah.
like, what I think of with, like, your rap group back in the day. Like, my one of my all-time favorite memories was when I booked you guys at a roller skating rink and you showed up in like 70s throwback roller skate
Yeah, we had
outfits.
short shorts on that day.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure one of you was not confident on roller skates.
Oh, I can't skate.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
couldn't
yeah,
skate. It
yeah.
was so funny because you kept slipping and falling, but you never gave up. Like you're just like, nope, this is what's gonna happen for 45 minutes. I'm gonna do this. Nothing's
Yeah,
gonna
I
stop me.
I did there's a local coffee shop, by me once, and I had to been, like, 18, 19 years old, and I cut together that song from Breakfast Club, Simple Minds, the "Hey, hey, hey,
Yeah.
hey," but only that part, and I looped it, and I just kept, doing that part over and over and singing to the microphone, and my friend was, like, dancing behind me. But I told the owner, I was like, "I will not stop until you tell me to stop or, like, physically take me off stage." I was like, "So I just wanna let you know whatever's about to happen is all on you."
Yeah.
Yeah. And, like, we went up there, did a thing until he had enough and he cut us off, but, like, I warned him,
Yeah.
you know?
But I mean, but I remember a friend of mine made a movie called The FP, which is like to some people it's the greatest movie they've ever seen, to some people it's the worst movie they've ever seen. And I remember talking to him about it And that was like his takeaway was he was like, I don't care if I've made the greatest movie of all time or the worst movie of all time. I just don't want to make the movie that people forget that they watched.
Sure, sure.
And like,
Yeah,
but I think that that was kind of the attitude that you and I both bonded over, especially when it came to live music,
yeah,
was like, I want to make sure that whenever anybody leaves this show, that I'm the act that they are still talking about of like, could you believe that guy with the acoustic guitar who just was like screaming in falsetto and being really obnoxious? Like, I want
yeah.
it to just be in someone's memory bank way more than I wanted them to like buy a CD and give a shit about my music.
Yeah, I mean, like, dude, like John Waters, like Andy Kaufman,
Yeah.
like, just that's it's I mean, it's definitely punk rock, I mean, I guess saying you're punk rock in that stuff is like not punk rock, but like
Yeah.
it is that very that damn the man sort of mentality, and
Yeah.
yeah, like, I mean, even like this houses thing, like we we filmed at the Full House in 2019 and tried to wrap it around as a TV show, and we pitched it and everyone was like, what's the stakes? Where's the sizzle? Where's the drama and all this sort of stuff? I was like, that's not what this is. And everyone passed, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna make it myself, and
Yeah.
I'm not gonna sell it to anyone, And so we just did it. We partnered with Ryan Reynolds, but like the movie's mine,
Yeah.
and Raymond Esposito's. So like we just did it and did it the exact way we wanted to. I mean, yeah, there's a couple houses in there that I put in there because I thought other people would appreciate. Like, I'm not the biggest Twilight fan or Outsiders, but I was like, oh, well, but this they have good stories, so let's put it in.
Well, and you did whatever you could with like obviously when I hear of, oh, it's a documentary about the people who live in famous houses, the first thing that jumps to my mind is always going to be the Breaking Bad house, just because there was so many reports
Yeah,
about the abuse that that house was taking and how the owner was not happy with it. And obviously you weren't going to be able to get a sit down interview with that owner, but you were still able to work that in because that is it would feel empty if that house
sure.
wasn't mentioned. And I think
Yeah,
you said something similar happened with like the Home Alone house where like you kind of had to include the Home Alone house, you had to interview like the people who lived across the street from it, the
yeah,
people who lived there at the time of filming,
yeah.
because maybe the owners at that time weren't interested. But like this documentary would be like it would be less than if you don't have the freaking Home Alone house
Right,
in it.
yeah, I mean,
Like
yeah, because I never heard back from the current owners of the Home Alone house, but that's, like it's not you can't stop you from telling that story, so it's yeah, like, let's talk to the people who lived there when it happened, let's talk to the neighbors who have to deal with all the time, let's talk to the realtor that sold the house, and, like, through the realtor, you're able to see the inside of the house, so it's always, like, alternative ways to tell a story, that's like it's funny when sometimes people go, I don't want to participate. I was like, that's fine. But like, I'm still telling the story. You're just not going to have your perspective, which is
yeah.
always unfortunate.
Do you think, I mean, I know that this is wildly unlikely, which is not anything to say about your film, just the way streaming works these days. But like, let's say that The House From is like this absolute sleepwalk hit, or that's not the word. You know what I mean? Like this sleeper hit that it is like the most streamed documentary of 2024. Everybody's talking about it. All of a sudden you've got like Netflix or Apple TV or someone's like, "We want to turn this into a series." Would you, or do you feel like that ship has
Yeah.
sailed and they missed their chance?
No, I mean, like, it's interesting because they're having conversations now, like, because, like, we've tried it before. We tried in 2019. We tried it, I guess, in like 2021 as well, like when we had a little bit more of the movie done and stuff like that. Um, but we're trying it one more time. But like I think like I've told the story I wanted to tell, so I think like if we were able to transition it into a show, it kind of becomes something that's less mine and more it lives in the umbrella of something I created,
Yeah.
because like I don't need I mean like unless it's like the Boy Meets World house. Like I don't really need to like go and do one of these things because we did it already. It becomes repetitive in that in some sense. Like I think there's different ways to tell this story, and I think we would just have like like a showrunner of some kind, helping do that scenario because and I could oversee in some ways. But yeah, I think there's a world in which we do it, but nothing that I would be like really at the helm all the way.
I think the most interesting way to do it, in all honesty, is combining what, like I've told you before, my favorite part, and it's obviously because Can Hardly Wait is one of my all-time favorite movies, but seeing the stars of that movie walk around the property and reminisce
Yeah,
is like really charming, and it makes me think of when they did the Friends reunion, and all they really did was just bring the cast back to the set and
yeah.
let them reminisce. Like, I think a world where you bring stars from a movie or TV show to the house that they filmed inside of for so long and they talk with the current homeowner, like that to me is like a riveting conversation of them like seeing all the
I mean,
changes to a thing
that
that
is the way
like
we're
was
that's
part
the
of
way
their
we're gonna try
home.
to do it, yeah. Yeah, I
That's how
mean,
you
that's
have
for
to do it, I think.
yeah, and that's for sure the way if we were to move forward as a series, that's the way we would do it. But, like, it's something we really couldn't have done in this. Like, like, one of our producers, Brett Gursky's, has a good relationship with, Matthew Lawrence, and there was a version of this we were gonna take him to the Miss Doubtfire house, but, like, I didn't know the current owners of the of the Miss Doubtfire house that well, where like I would able to go inside,
Yeah.
So it's like we're taking Matthew Lawrence just to look outside. Like we kind of already have it with Ethan. So, like we tried to get the Boy Meets World people to do it, but it looks like they were already doing that themselves with their podcast. So it's like it just becomes like say what you will about our film, but like I like to think that each house adds to itself a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, is a montage of three houses kind of saying the same thing, and that's why we collectively put it as a montage. And if we took another couple actors in the movie, it would just be the same thing,
Yeah.
really. You
Yeah.
know, unless like, Breaking Bad, like he was like out there stopping the, pizzas.
Yeah.
Like,
No, no,
uh,
but that's I mean, that's also true because the Friday house is dramatically different than when you're talking about the Goonies house,
yeah,
which is dramatically different than when you're talking about the Home Alone house. Like,
yeah,
they are their own little unique stories, and I guess the only reason I'm asking is because when I walked away from this, all I thought was, "I want more." Like, this, like,
yeah,
left me
yeah, yeah.
wanting more. Like
It's the way the market is, man. It's like, it's like I was talking to Taylor about this too, I was like, like our the kinds of films we make, um, people watch and people enjoy, but would they ever go to a stream like would they ever put money into a streaming channel to see it?
Yeah.
And that's the question. It's like and that's why those true crime things do well, or these like big sort of like stories like oh, the Arnold Schwarzenegger documentary. I'm not just thinking of some, but
Yeah.
like these like either a huge name that's giving you incredible access, which is very very difficult to do, or a true crime. Those are typically the things that people go, I don't have Peacock, I don't have Max, I don't have Netflix, I don't have Disney. I'm gonna do the subscription to see this.
Yeah.
Like no one's gonna go to Netflix to start subscribing to Netflix for a Lost documentary or the House from documentary.
Yeah.
Like we're making, I think, great work, but it's like that's just the way the market is, and that's the way they see it.
Well, and also I prefer the Lost documentary. I
Sure.
prefer the House from
Yeah.
like that's where my preference is. But like as a person who listens to podcasts and listens to radio shows and stuff like that, when you hear them recommending a documentary, they're recommending a true crime podcast and saying like, "You're not going to believe the twists and turns that are revealed in
Yeah.
this," and you don't really get that when you're doing like a nostalgic pop culture
No.
documentary because most people already kind of know the basic gist. Like the same, we talked about this the other day about the Mr. McMahon documentary. Like, if you're a wrestling fan, you don't really learn anything
No.
new in
No.
that documentary. It's just a very concise telling of like a 40-year story in 6 episodes. But if you're watching it with someone who's never watched wrestling, they're like, "Oh my god, I can't believe they did this and this and this and that."
Right.
Like, it's that the pop culture thing is such a weird world because there's already such a well documented thing of that piece of pop culture before the
Yeah.
documentary comes out.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, dude. I mean, like, I know I'm not sure if you fall in this category or not, but like, there was plenty of friends who are like really good friends of mine that like for a while or didn't at all see Barney because they're like, oh, I don't have Peacock. It's like, can't you just get a subscription for a goddamn month? you know,
No, I
you
I
know.
did my thing was
Yeah, I
um
thought you were in this category.
no, 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 no. I just was late to watching it because it came out in October. and I was doing so much
Oh, right,
horror
horror,
stuff, so
yeah.
I couldn't get around to it until November. But it was like my November 1st watch. Like I dove
Okay,
in
okay, okay.
that day, and I loved it. I mean,
It was Waldo that took you, like, 3 years to
Waldo,
watch,
it
I
took
think.
until I got a DVD.
That's funny.
I needed to, and I have right now. I think Barney and House From are the only things I don't own of yours physically on DVD. So
Yeah, well, I mean, that's always but I told the people at Peacock, I was like and I love them, but, like, I was like, "Can we please put this out on Blu-ray?" And she's like, "Do people still buy Blu-rays?" And I just sent her a picture of my basement. I said, "Yes.
yes, yes, they do.
Yes, they do."
And also,
So,
like, not for nothing, it's not that much to produce like a short
no.
run 500
No.
run for like the diehards that want it.
Yeah, but, like, you're talking to a streaming network that, runs a lot of, like, Oxygen E and all that sort of stuff. They don't know that world. Like, that's
Yeah.
not like, they don't understand the vinegar syndromes or, like, the Joy the Ride sort of mentality, or, yeah, any of those things. So I'm trying to educate. I personally have a copy of the Blu-ray only because we played Kevin Smith's theater and they sent me like these like blank Blu-rays, and I ripped off like I guess like I had like multiple copies of Armageddon, and I just like took the slide out and like I printed out like my own Barney wraparound.
I love that.
Yeah,
There was a little slip up you said earlier where you almost said the word MySpace.
I did. Yeah, I'm so
Are
used to it because I'm in pre-production
I
on
was
it.
gonna say, are we allowed to talk about the fact that you're
Yeah,
working on a MySpace documentary?
yeah, yeah. It's tough, man. Like it's like because we're like. I'm like, oh yeah, houses, 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 and then in the back of my mind, it's like, oh, I gotta set this up for this interview for MySpace and do that. It's like, it's just like a weird, like, sort of overcross scenario. But yeah, we start filming beginning of November.
I'm very excited for that because I
Yeah,
feel like,
that's how we met, Matt.
yeah, well, that's what I was gonna say. I feel like so much of so like that more than anything. Like I'm not the person who wants to visit a house that much. You
Sure.
know what I mean? Like that's
Really?
just like not the person that I am.
Oh, because you'd have to leave your house.
Yeah, that's listen, you know that that is like the worst thing I could possibly do. I love the security that is this basement. And like, Bill Murray, like I love Christmas, I love Bill Murray, but like this is like no, I live this world. Like this is
Yeah.
like one of those things where it's kind of like similarly to I guess watching Taylor's ska documentary where I was like, no, I was like there as
Oh, right,
ska was
right.
happening. Like this is kind of
That's funny.
the closest thing that you've done where I'm like, no, I lived this
Yeah,
MySpace world and I'm ready
yeah.
for every stupid second of remembering it. Like
Who would you want to see in a MySpace documentary?
I mean, there's like these I'm sure you're gonna get there, but there were like, especially in the hardcore music scene, there were like mini celebrities. Like there
Yeah.
was a dude who I'm pretty sure he was the lead singer of a metalcore band from Florida named X Matthew X that I think had the second most friends on MySpace behind Tom because he
Really?
was just like a super attractive gothy guy that like every girl followed on because we used to book him up here in Aston because like every single girl within like 100-mile radius would come out to meet X Matthew X. Like it was like
I wonder if he has an Instagram. Is he still around?
I have no I couldn't even tell you what his last name was. I only knew him as X Matthew X. Like those are those people where I'm like, I would love to get the story of that or like those bands like Broken Side and the Millionaires that were only famous because they were on MySpace, but like never got a
Melissa
record
Millionaire?
contract. Like I just think that there's so many of those. There's so many of these interesting little things where
But Melissa Millionaire, she just played the While We're Young or yeah, While We're
yeah,
Young festival.
I think yeah, she was there. But you know what I mean? Like those people Melissa Millionaire got to play when we were young as an artist who barely was on a record label. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's I think what captures me with the
Yeah, she was a
power of
scene
MySpace.
queen, but like she got her music out there.
Yeah, like that's the stuff that I think is really, really interesting. I've said before, like when MySpace went away, my life as a promoter got 10,000 times harder because like
Oh my
Facebook
god, yeah.
and Instagram and all those things never had the algorithm for promotions the way that MySpace did. Like MySpace had
It
that
was
to a
organic.
perfection.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean like I'd be curious, when do you consider MySpace going away? Because I don't, in my mind, like, like as a fan, there wasn't a moment where I'm like, I'm not going on MySpace anymore. You just stopped logging in.
You
You
st
know, you were like,
I I'll tell you when I think MySpace went away, fully.
because it's still around.
It was the day that Justin Timberlake bought it and debuted the new MySpace, and I remember
Yeah.
logging in to see what it was like, and I remember that night thinking, "They ruined it." Like like, it was like and I did, I was like, "I'm never logging into this again." Like, it was because they, like, did a side scroll instead of a downward scroll, like, there was all these
Oh.
weird shifts. They deleted
Oh.
everybody's old photos to make space for, like, the new like, it
Yeah.
just took away so much. That was definitively the moment when I was like, "MySpace is gone."
That's
Um,
funny. Well, because I know the current owners, because of the stock, and they were able to get me logged into my old account, and it's like only one picture's there.
yeah,
It's like, it says I'm from different areas and I'm from like I'm not like from Teaneck, New Jersey, but it is interesting going through. It's a ghost town, right? But like it is going through seeing what the names of some of my friends were
yeah.
and and seeing like what some of the pictures were that still survived. It's really
I'm
it's
telling
pretty
you,
interesting.
pitch this to them and tie it into the documentary. But if they relaunched MySpace in 2025, looking exactly the way it looked back in the day, I think a large chunk of people would just migrate over there overnight.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was issues and why they couldn't like different like coding issues and like to go back into that realm. But yeah, but you could have to just recode it.
Yeah,
It
like because that
stuff
was
just takes so much money, man. Like, I
yeah,
mean, just like especially like MySpace back then, like you got to remember like hardware, like servers and like just backup drives. It just wasn't the
yeah.
same the way it is now.
But I can tell you being on a million different social media apps that there is seeing a number in the top right corner of my Facebook does not give me the rush of adrenaline that when you logged in and in big red letters it was like new message, new friend request, like
Yeah.
that you're just like, yeah, like so pumped up.
Well, I don't know if it's like I think it's like a GIF or a meme or something like that, where it's like nothing hotter than this, and it was like a new comment, new picture comment, new message. It was like new friend request. It was like all of them all together. Are just like this is amazing.
Yeah, you and I were texting a couple months ago about like a musician that you and I both did shows with, and we're like, whatever
Yeah.
happened to that guy? Because that was the only way we had any contact with him was through MySpace.
If anyone's listening, and you know Howard's dilemma,
From
please reach
Westchester,
out to us.
PA.
Yeah, from West Howard's dilemma. I had his number. Does not work anymore. I have his email. It does not work anymore. His last name was not Dilemma, but my dilemma is I don't know who Howard is.
I don't even remember who introduced you. May have been the one that was like, "You got to book Howard's
No,
Dilemma." So I
no,
don't know,
I don't think so. I don't
or
know.
did you
I thought
find
I
him
got it
through
from you.
me? I
Well, so I've been looking through old tapes for this other project I want to do, but like there was. Yeah, I always like think of like the scene, like what was my scene, and I always because like you look at like God, like the Spielbergs and the Lucases and how they all hung out together, or like the mumblecore scene, or like Pete Holmes and all those Chicago guys. But like there was this one show we did at the Trocadero. It was like us. It was Dirty Diamond,
nice.
Wang Newton, Skeletor, and Howard's Dilemma. I mean, it was and Candy Mayhem. It was stacked to the most like alternative, weird Philly scene. No one really was in the crowd. Like
Yeah,
no one cared. But I thought that was the best lineup in the world.
yeah.
Like it was just like, for anyone who doesn't know, Wang Newton was this Asian woman who did Wayne Newton impressions. So funny. Dirty Diamond was a guy who did Dirty Neil Diamond covers. Skeletor was a man dressed as Skeletor that did dirty jokes.
And he's still out there, right? Skeletor
Yeah,
does like
yeah,
his Gong Show karaoke now.
yeah. God, I mean, I'd never seen that show, but I always wanted to. And then Howard's Dilemma was like the most unique of all of us. Like, I don't even know how to describe what he did, but he had these like
It
characters.
was also the
He was
most
like a
family
scientist.
friendly. He was so
Yeah,
family friendly, which like you can't say
yeah.
about
We
the
were
other
not.
ones. But
Yeah,
yeah, he would play characters. Like he was like it was almost like a one man show that had
yeah,
songs. It was so
yeah,
different.
yeah.
Yeah, I wonder every day about like ever since you've said that I've kept checking videos because one video just said RIP Howard's Dilemma, And
Yeah,
I've been like,
I hope he's alive.
yeah, I was like, I need to know more about this. What does this comment mean?
Like,
Um,
I'm able to find like, if I have, like, enough of someone's information, like, their name and possibly where they live or at least lived, I can usually find their stuff. I mean, that's what we did with houses a lot too. But, like, yeah, you just dilemma,
yeah,
like, yeah,
it's impossible to find. Um, well, Tommy, thank you for chilling out and talking for a little bit. Let's one last time tell people where they can go. Tonight is the premiere at Smod Castle, eight
Yeah,
o'clock.
Kevin Smith will be there. I think he's introing the movie, so that will be good to high five him. And then after that, Sunday the 27th, we'll be at Ryan Reynolds' Maximum Effort channel because Ryan Reynolds is our executive producer. And then Monday we'll be on the 28th. We'll be on iTunes, Amazon, Google, like all those spots you get digital download. And to reminder, Jason Lee is our narrator, and we do have Ethan Umbre back at the Can't Hardly Wait house.
All right, thank you so much, Tommy. Everyone, go check out the movie. It's incredible.